Hi, everyone. Just waiting for everyone to connect here. Thank you so much for coming to our second pre-program orientation. I am Andrew Bottom. I am your Associate Director of Global Internship Programs at UCLA, and I'm here with my colleague. I'll let her introduce herself.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kellen Townsend, and I am a Partnerships Account Manager with Virtual Internships. Really excited to be with all of you guys today.
So I am recording this session just so you all know. That way, if you want to refer back, you'll have the opportunity to check it out, and I'll send out a link once the session is done via email. So for today, as you all probably are aware, your internships are starting very, very soon. So on Monday, June 21st is when your program begins. You'll be doing your internship for a total of 8 weeks until August 13th. And then your coursework, of course, is 2 weeks longer. It's a 10-week coursework. So that goes until the 28th of August for those of you who are in a 195 or 195 CE course, as well as the optional CESC 130 course. Your internship itself will be between 20 and 30 hours per week, and then again for the duration of 2 months. And so today we're going to discuss first is just some of the program contacts. So both at UCLA, who you should know, especially if there's any issues that pop up and what we can assist you with, as well as your contacts at virtual internships. We'll also discuss a little bit about the different portals you might have access to during your program, campus resources you still have access to during the summer. And then we'll discuss, or Kellen will discuss what to do once you're placed at your internship site, a little bit more about the internship experience and support that you'll have during the program, some health and safety advice and tips, as well as expectations for what it will be like once you are, currently doing your internship, and some tips for success. We'll end the session with some scenarios of, if what XYZ happens, what you might want to think about doing in order to resolve that scenario, and then we'll open it up to some Q&A. So anyways, we're hoping that this is a good opportunity to learn more about the program prior to starting and to ask any questions again at the end so that we can get those answered before you get started. So as far as UCLA, I am really your main contact. So I think a lot of you have already reached out to me over the time that you've been enrolled in the program. So if you really don't know where to start, you can always send me an email, and then I can discuss with you, any question you have, and at least filter you to the correct person. If you do have specific questions, though, about finances, about payments you made, or financial aid, your registration, Alejandro Hurtado and Nancy Montez are in our office. They're folks that I may have already referred you to if you had questions earlier on. So feel free to email them directly or CC them on an email that you have to me, and then we can make sure that the correct person is responding to your question. As far as financial aid, I believe everyone at this point should have received their EFAN from the financial aid office if you did apply for financial aid. So it should let you know, what your EFAN, like what sort of package you were given as far as grants and loans. Please note that if you do have a loan, you will need to do additional steps in order to get that loan dispersed. So just note that the grants you will accept and you'll get that money. But as far as the loans, there are additional steps. So make sure you are completing those steps in order to make sure that you get the loans dispersed on time. On our end, the program fee is on your account, and the financial aid should be dispersed between 5 to 10 days, usually about 5 days before the program begins. But if you haven't got your EFAN, or if you have any specific questions or you're nervous, please contact your financial aid advisor directly. They're the ones who will give you the most up-to-date information. Your advisor is based off of your last name. So you'll see below, depending on your last name, which advisor you'll have. Feel free to CC me on any emails if you want with your advisor. In case you're not getting a quick response, I can always try to follow up for you or follow up with you, later on if that's the case. And I'll hand it over to Kellen to discuss a little bit about your contacts with virtual internships.
All right, Andrew, thank you so much. So Andrew kind of went through all of your contacts at UCLA. So I'm going to kind of start by going over your 3 main contacts with virtual internships. And your first one is your host company supervisor. So this is the person who you will probably be interacting with the most. This is the person who is employed at your host company. So they're not necessarily employed or a part of virtual internships. They just partner with us. And so they are full-time employed at the company that you're placed at. They are your supervisor. They are your mentor for this experience. This is the person that you will be meeting with over video or phone call at least once a week. And you should be talking to probably daily, either over chat or email. So if you have any questions about the projects that you've been assigned at work or your colleagues or who you should reach out to with specific host company questions, always direct those first to your host company supervisor. The second person who you will really be interacting a lot with is your internship experience manager. And I know that you all had a little bit of a shift. And so you all have been working with Mirta up until this point, and you all should have received an email on Thursday or Friday of last week, kind of letting you know of a quick change. So Mirta is still with virtual internships. She is just moving into a different role and is going to do more things around employability and career coaching and professional development. And so we have Sierra, who is wonderful. She's actually an alumni of our virtual internships program. Who will be stepping in as the internship experience manager. Sierra is also located on the West Coast. So you all will be in the same time zone. So she's really easily reachable. In the email, you should have gotten a link to her Calendly account. So anytime that you feel like you want to schedule a meeting with her, just to kind of talk through how things are going, if you have any specific questions, you can always refer to that and really easily schedule a one-on-one meeting with her. She's the person who's going to be checking in with you every week, asking you how your internship's going, asking you to fill out your weekly checkpoint. She's really your main contact at virtual internships. Then you will also have an internship coach. You'll interact with this person twice throughout the experience, once at the midpoint and once at the very end. And this person is all about professional development. So they're really going to look at the skills that you're developing, what you're learning, and how you can get the most out of this experience. Okay. Let's see.
All right, so next up is just some of the portals you might be interacting with on this program. So currently you've probably interacted with the UCLA Global Internship Portal where you enrolled and registered, and we've tried to post some general information such as syllabi for your courses, the information about these pre-program orientations, and just things to get you prepared prior to the program beginning. Really moving forward, there shouldn't be any real new information that we're going to be posting to that portal at this point. It's good to reference back to again, but it's really been just to prepare you to get the program started. Moving forward, you'll have CCLE, of course, similar, with your coursework that you'll have access to. I believe for the CESC 130 course, there also may be some sort of Canva portal that you might be interacting with, but you'll get an email directly from the department, or from the instructor about that. And then I'll let Kellen talk about the virtual internship portal. That will probably be where you're focusing a little bit more on compared to the UCLA Global Internship Portal at this point.
Yes. And so right now, the way it's going to work is most things are going to be done through email. So every week, Sierra will send you an email, and that will have a link to your weekly checkpoint that you will fill out. We'll talk about that a little bit more. Every week, you'll get an email letting you know when the chat is scheduled for the week, as well as a link to go to the chat. You'll get an email every week when our Global Employability Expert Series is going to be, and you'll get a link to register. If you're not able to attend those events in person, you'll also get video recordings and kind of a summary of the event the day after. So all of that right now is going to kind of be done through emails through Sierra. So make sure you're checking your email every single day, including your spam folder. So just make sure that you're aware of all of those events, so we can kind of keep you engaged throughout the program.
All right. And then just a couple quick resources on UCLA campus. Just know you're still a UCLA student, obviously you're enrolled for the summer. So you have CAPS available for use if you should need CAPS during your time on the program. I know that we're not currently abroad, where sometimes the emergency number is really helpful when you're physically abroad and trying to get a hold of someone right away. But again, you still have access to CAPS should you need counseling during the time, or if you are already seeing a counselor, during the academic year. Also, you have accessibility to the Title IX and Sexual Harassment Prevention Office. Of course, we really hope this such thing doesn't occur, on your internship program. But of course, if anything does occur, between your supervisor, other colleagues that you're working with, we definitely want to make sure that we're here to support you at UCLA campus. Also, the Center for Accessible Education. We did a pre-survey prior to ask if anyone had any accessibility needs, so you should have already filled that out. However, if there's any accessibility needs you failed to mention that you'll need for your internship, definitely reach out to myself right away, so we can discuss and see whether it's something we can work with virtual internships about. CAE would of course need to be involved in that conversation, but since it's getting a little bit later prior to the start of the program, we definitely want to know any accessibility needs right away so we can make sure you have a great experience. And then I'll hand it over to Kellen.
Awesome. Okay. So the majority of you should have your placement at this point. I know there's still one or two of you who are interviewing this week. So you will have all have your placements very, very soon. So now we're going to kind of talk through steps once you've received your placement. So once you've secured your host company placement, you've gotten your project placement plan, what are some things that you can start doing over the next week to really start preparing and to make sure you set yourself up well for success? So the first is preparing an office, workspace. I know we don't have access to a whole room or anything like that to dedicate as an office, but do kind of start thinking through where are you going to do your work? Where is a good place that you can focus? Make sure you have the technology that you need. If you need, like headphones, laptop charger, all of that kind of stuff. If you want a mouse or wireless keyboard, anything like that, start thinking through all of your technology needs. When you get your project placement plan, there'll be 2 to 5 remote working tools listed that the host company uses. So they might use Slack or they might use WhatsApp or Zoom. So it might be a good idea to go ahead and just kind of start playing around with those technologies, create a Slack account, kind of log in, make sure you understand how it works, so that way you can just kind of jump right into things on your first day. Starting today, you'll get a set of orientation emails that'll kind of go through different things that you need to do in your internship experience, tips for success. There'll be links to different webinars that we've done. So once again, continue to check your email every day to make sure you get our orientation emails because they'll kind of delve into all of these topics further. The other thing that we do is that if you go ahead and reach out and connect with your supervisor, so you've already interviewed with this person, so you kind of have that initial connection. But on your project placement plan, you'll have your supervisor's name and email listed out for you. So go ahead and send an email introducing yourself. Tell them you're excited about this internship experience. Feel free to give any background about yourself that you think is important that you didn't get to talk about in your host company interview. Ask if there's anything that you can be doing now to help you prepare for your first day. And then this is really, really important, is go ahead and determine your first day schedule. Go ahead and get that first call set up. So Monday, June 21st at 1:00 p.m. I'm going to be meeting with my host company supervisor so that you know what you're going to be doing your first day. Don't wait and email them on June 21st because depending on what time zone they're in, they might not even get it until the next day. So you want to go ahead and be proactive and go ahead and set that schedule for yourself now. Okay, so now we're going to kind of talk through some things that you can be doing during your internship in order for you to be successful. Okay, so one thing to remember is that while you're at your internship, while you're working your 20 or 30 hours a week, and you've got all these other obligations, you're doing your coursework and things like that, just don't forget that you have support available to you. Sierra is your internship experience manager, so utilize her. If you have questions, if you're stuck, if you're not sure how to do something, reach out to Sierra, book a call with her, and kind of go ahead and get the help that you need to have a successful internship experience. You know, we've got supports that are developed for the program, and they're not mandatory, but we really do recommend that you take advantage of them because they're really there to augment your experience. They're really there to provide support, coaching, all the things that you need in order to be successful. Because you know you will be engaging with your host company supervisor, you will be engaging with your colleagues, but you still will be completing this internship remotely. And so we really want you to kind of be engaged and make sure you're still making those connections. I've said this a bunch, but remember to continue to check your email every single day. Check your spam folders. We've had lots of just miscommunications with interns and host company supervisors simply because emails were going to spam. So check your spam folder every day and kind of make sure you're not missing out on anything. The other thing I would just really encourage you to do is take time to record and reflect on your experience. Something that your internship coach is going to talk a lot with you about is your professional development, updating your resume, updating your LinkedIn profile, to kind of better advertise and market yourself after you have this experience. And so taking time to kind of really reflect on what you're learning, reflect on the skills that you're developing, take some notes. You know, if you are reaching out to donors in order to try to increase funding for a nonprofit organization, keep track of all the money that you're helping to raise. Keep track of the number of emails that you're sending out. These are going to be all really great things for you to put in your resume and things for you to really talk about in future interviews. And you'll be surprised how quickly you can kind of forget things that you've done or things that you have accomplished. And so it's a really good idea just to have like a note in your phone, a Google Doc, a journal, and kind of remember what you're learning. So that way, when you go to your next interview, you can kind of really sell this experience and market yourself. Okay. Oh, sorry. Okay, back on track. So the next thing we really want to talk about is weekly checkpoints. So these are mandatory for virtual internships. This is kind of the top half of the weekly checkpoint. You will get this sent to you every Thursday from Sierra. There's also a quick little survey to fill out that's going to ask you to rank your week on a scale from 1 to 10. It's going to ask you how things are going, and it's going to ask if you would like to schedule a call with your internship experience manager. So you'll fill out that survey, and then you'll also fill out this weekly project checkpoint. It's going to ask you for your supervisor name, supervisor information, how many hours you worked during the week. It's also going to ask the main projects that you worked on, you know, what did you complete this week? And then it's going to ask you to kind of reflect on the skills and information and everything that you're kind of taking away. So what are your biggest takeaways from your experience this week? The bottom half of this checkpoint actually is a couple questions for your host company supervisor. So once you fill out this top half here, you will send that on to your host company supervisor. And it's going to ask them just to kind of give you some feedback. The whole point of this internship experience is to be a learning experience. It's for your professional development, your career development. It's a way for you to kind of interact with a new culture. And there's not really a chance for you to know how you're doing and how you're progressing without that weekly feedback. And so it's going to ask your supervisor to give you some weekly feedback. And then they'll also kind of list out your roles and responsibilities for the upcoming week. You and your host company supervisor will then sign off on it, and you'll send it back to Sierra so we can just kind of keep a record of it, keep a record of the hours that you're working. These are really important, so please do make sure that you are filling these out every week. Okay. Like I said, we do have lots of support kind of built into this program. One is are weekly group discussions. You'll be invited to Slack chats every week as kind of like a virtual hangout. Once a week, they'll be moderated by an internship experience manager. So there'll be someone from virtual internships there to answer any questions that you have, ask specific questions, kind of share articles. It's a really great way for you to engage with other virtual interns from all over the world. We also just have lots of other Slack chats that are kind of just for interns, and there's a way for you to kind of just chat and connect with other virtual interns throughout your experience. Every 2 weeks, we'll also host what's called our Global Employability Expert Series, just on different topics. We'll have different people from the community kind of come in and talk about different topics. So just make sure that you check in for emails about those. If you ever are struggling or feel like you need a little bit more support, feel like you're kind of struggling with a virtual internship, also don't forget about Career Bridge, our global internship curriculum. It's 10 to 12 hours of online curriculum, and that's really just kind of designed to follow you throughout this experience. So pre-internship, during the internship, and after the internship courses. It's kind of, we'll talk you through intercultural development, intercultural communication, tips for success for a remote internship. Everything that you need can also be found in Career Bridge. So that's another great resource for you to check out. Like we've kind of already talked about this, but just a reminder for your internship coaching calls. Also kind of want to reiterate that these are not automatically booked for you just because we don't know your schedule. We don't know what other commitments or things like that you have going on during the summer. So you'll get multiple emails asking you and reminding you about your internship coaching calls, but you have to go in and actively schedule them. So you'll start getting an email a week before the midpoint of your internship asking you to schedule your midpoint call. And then you'll get an email in the final week of your internship asking you to schedule your final coaching call. So please do remember to book those. Of all of the supports that we offer, these are the ones that students really rate the highest, and that students seem to enjoy the most. It's a really great chance for you to just kind of get some one-on-one advice and coaching on your future career and development. So please do take advantage of those. Okay, so next we're going to kind of go into health and safety, which I know may seem a little out of place in a virtual internship, but there are things to really think about and consider even while working in a remote environment. One of the things to kind of think through is the ergonomics of your workspace. So if you can and you do have the resources available to you, try to set up a kind of a standard workplace so you're not just sitting on your couch, you're not laying in your bed. You do kind of want to set yourself up well for success. Thinking about wanting to make sure your neck, you're not like bending it and looking down because that's going to hurt you a little bit. Try to keep your arms at 90 degrees, your feet and legs parallel to the floor, so that you're not end up hurting yourself, because we all know that sitting for long periods of time isn't great for us. If you can take breaks every hour or so, just kind of get up, stretch, move around, kind of take some time for your mental and physical health. Also, try to be mindful and create a structure and stick to it. A lot of times students, when they first start working remotely, will kind of like roll out of bed in their pajamas, like hop on their laptop and start working. And while that may seem really appealing on mornings when we're really tired, it's really not the best for our mental, physical health. And so thinking about, still getting up, kind of still doing the same routine, still dressing well, still dressing professionally, just kind of like you would going into an office, can really kind of help kind of create some mindfulness and kind of help you set yourself in that headspace of, okay, now I'm at work. And then when you're done with work, shutting everything down, turning off your notifications, and taking that time for yourself. Once again, we really do encourage you to stay connected. You have virtual internships, you have UCLA, you have this cohort of students, you have your virtual internships cohort of students. your host company supervisor, your internship experience manager. You have lots of people who are there to support you throughout this experience. So if you are kind of feeling lonely or you're feeling disconnected, please do reach out to us so we can kind of help you get engaged and get connected. Another thing that we do want to quickly go over is digital harassment. It can occur in many forms online, but it's really broadly defined as the use of information and communication technologies by an individual or group to cause harm to another person. So if you at all are experiencing or think you may be experiencing some kind of cyberbullying, cyber stalking, exploitation, anything like that, please do reach out to your internship experience manager, Sierra, ASAP. We have more information on our website here. If you don't feel comfortable reaching out to anyone at Virtual Internships, then please do reach out to Andrew and UCLA as they are there to help and support you as well. But we definitely, any type of digital harassment should not be occurring. And so please do reach out to us if you're experiencing anything like that at your internship. Just kind of quickly note a couple student expectations. Make sure you are working your selected number of hours per week. You know, if you signed on to do 20 hours a week, if you signed on to do 30 hours a week, make sure you are completing those. If something happens and you're running out of projects, ask for more work, ask for more projects. Also, don't be afraid to kind of invent your own projects. If you're looking at something and think like, oh, this could be really helpful, start working on it and then present it to your host company supervisor. You know, don't be afraid to kind of take some initiative and create some own work for yourself in order to gain the skills that you really want to get. Make sure you're doing your weekly checkpoints. Once again, it is a remote internship, but please do be professional. You don't want to show up in pajamas on a Zoom call. You know, you want to make sure you're addressing everyone politely and professionally. Another expectation that we really have, and we'll talk about this a little bit more in your tips for success, but over communicate. You know, you're not in an office, and so no one can see you. No one knows what you're doing. No one knows if you have enough work or if you don't have enough work. So please just think through over communicating versus not communicating enough. And that will really help you be successful in your internship. And like I said, we'll talk about that a little more in detail when we go over some tips for success, which we are going to do right now. So our top kind of 5 tips for success for a remote internship. Number 1 is communication. 2, time management, make yourself known, understanding company culture, and taking initiative. And we actually have a webinar on this that we've done. It's about a 30-minute webinar that kind of goes over into these all in more detail. And you'll get a link to that webinar this week. So you can go online and watch it and kind of learn more about all these tips. But as I said, for communication, err on the side of way more communication than you think is necessary. I mean, sometimes it can be as much as just checking in every day. Even if you don't have any questions, but just sending a chat to your host company supervisor and saying, you know, hi, Andrew, good morning. Just want to let you know I'm logged on. I'm planning to work on the social media marketing for this campaign today. Please let me know if you have any questions or if there's anything else I should be working on. And then at the end of every day, just kind of saying like, hey, I'm signing off. This is what I accomplished today. Here's what I'm planning to work on tomorrow. Just little things like that and kind of taking that initiative can really help you stand out. The next one is time management and organization. You know, you're working your 20 hours per week, but you may or may not have a set schedule with your host company supervisor. And so just kind of ensuring that you find the time to get your work done. You attend any meetings that you need to attend and kind of be for and that you may need to do what we call kind of synchronously. So there may be times that you need to be logged on or attending kind of meetings as are happening in real time. And then you'll do what we call asynchronous work, where you're just working on projects on your own time. And while the flexibility is great, sometimes that can help us, that leads us to being a little less organized, or it can be a difficult from a time management perspective. So please do make sure you are managing your time well. The next one is making yourself known. Once again, you aren't in an office every day and you can't go grab coffee with a coworker. You can't go to lunch with someone. You can't stop by someone's desk and just kind of have a chit chat or a conversation. It's something we kind of call like this water cooler culture. And so as an intern, this can happen remotely, but it just takes a little more initiative. So ask your host company supervisor to introduce you to other colleagues. Reach out and ask other colleagues if they need help or any assistance if you're ever lacking for projects. Feel free to just kind of schedule calls to get to know other people at your host company. Feel free to schedule like a 15-minute call with someone who you think has an interesting position just to learn a little bit more about what they do. In order to kind of stand out in a remote internship, it just takes a little more initiative. So please do think about trying to make yourself known. So that way you can learn as much as you can, and you can also get a great recommendation from your host company supervisor. The next one is understanding company and culture. So you'll really want to think through, first of all, what culture am I working in? If my host company is in Japan, what does it mean to work in an office in Japan? Do your research, kind of think through that. Are they formal or less formal? Is it a very hierarchical structure? And you really can't jump two places in front, right? Like you should not be interacting with your boss's boss, but you're only interacting with your boss. Or is it more of a flat structure and kind of more go with the flow, with everyone's okay with you interacting with whoever you want. Spend some time kind of researching company and business culture in the country that you're placed. And then also take some time to kind of understand the culture of your individual company. Do people chat? Do they email? Do they do WhatsApp? Does everyone have their video on? Do they not have their video on? Kind of how are the people interacting? And what are your other colleagues doing? And then mimic that. The next thing that we're going to talk about is taking initiative. And this one's really important. We've actually done just a whole webinar on taking initiative that you'll actually also get a link to as well. So please do watch it because it's really great. It has a lot of great advice. But just kind of really quickly, initiative is being able to take a meaningful action without being prompted to do so. It's being resourceful, it's working without being told what to do, and it requires a lot of resilience and determination. So as a way to kind of show initiative in a professional setting, think about how you can be proactive about something. If you know there's going to be something coming up in a couple months, or if you know something might end up being a problem, be proactive and go ahead and solve it. Don't just present problems to a host company supervisor or to a colleague, but if you present a problem, also present what you think the solution is. It doesn't have to be right, but at least give it your best guess or give it your best shot. Volunteer for projects, think outside the box. Be a connector in between people, be a connector between your host company and your culture, and really kind of show your passion. If there's something that you're specifically really interested in, don't be afraid to kind of make that known, and try to ask for projects specifically related to what you're passionate about. Like I said, we have great webinars, great blogs on all these topics. You'll get links to all of these, but please do check these out because they're a really great kind of professional development tool and lots of great tips and advice. Think through as you end your internship, you'll get sent an end of program evaluation. So please make sure you do fill that out. You'll be invited to join our LinkedIn alumni group. So please do make sure you join that group. There's job postings, advice, things like that in there. You'll also get different badges from virtual internships. You'll get a end of program certificate and things like that that you can use and kind of share on LinkedIn just to talk more about your experience. All right, so now we're going to kind of go through some different scenarios, and I'm going to pass it off to Andrew to take the lead on this.
All right, thanks, Kellen. So again, these are some scenarios that may or may not happen, but we just want to, present them to you so you kind of have an idea that they were to happen, what are some, actions you could take. So scenario one, it's the day before your program begins and you realize that your financial aid hasn't dispersed. What should you do? So as I probably mentioned, or as I mentioned a little bit earlier, if your financial aid has not dispersed yet, or you haven't got your EFAN, don't panic yet. Make sure that you contact your alpha counselor immediately to see what's happened, if there's any documents you haven't filled out, if you need to complete anything with your loans. Feel free to CC myself, but specifically Nancy Montez and Alejandra Hurtado from IEO. They'll be helpful in just being that connector, being able to follow up for you should you not get a response right away. You won't be dropped from the program if your financial aid doesn't disperse right away. So don't worry. We basically say 5 days before the program it should disperse, but if there's some issue going on, we're of course going to work with you until it figures itself out and is eventually dispersed to your account. I also suggest to set up direct deposit if you have Bruin bill. In this case, you are physically at home, or not necessarily, at least. Some of you may actually be abroad, depending if home is abroad. But for many of you, you may be in Westwood or at home in the U.S. And so you could get a check sent to you, but oftentimes it's a lot easier for direct deposit and quicker. So I suggest set that up if you haven't already. And if there is a scenario where your financial aid hasn't dispersed, to consider just some temporary sources of funding that could help you through that time, whether it's family, friends, credit card, things like that. But before you get there, I would first suggest reaching out to your financial aid counselor to make sure that just whatever hasn't been filled out has been done and completed, and as IEO can assist you with connecting you to financial aid if you're having difficulty. In order to not reach this scenario, again, just check your MyCLA now, see what documents might be missing up there. And again, it should disperse between 5 to 10 days prior to your start date. So coming up soon, could be dispersing as of now, but maybe in the next couple of days. Scenario two, it's been 2 weeks interning at your site and you are having persistent challenges getting in contact with your internship site manager. What should you do? So as Kellen was outlining, hopefully this won't be the case because you'll be doing these weekly reports with your site manager. But if this happens to be an issue, of course, we want to make sure that you have the tools to help solve the problem. So first of all, just note that, obviously in this case with the virtual internship occurring in Asia in a different time zone, there will be some sort of different in time zones and probably in responses. It could be nighttime there when you're working or vice versa. And so give your manager some time to respond. They may not respond right away if it's not, during the correct time zone or if they're in a meeting. If you have other platforms that you're communicating on rather than just email, maybe you have WhatsApp or maybe you have Slack or Microsoft Teams, try to get a hold of them other platforms. Maybe that's a better way to communicate. Especially if it's urgent, or to contact another colleague that you've been introduced to. If the issue becomes persistent, and this is kind of across the board, you can always reach out to your internship experience manager, which is now officially not Mirta, but what's her name again? Sorry, Kellen, I'm forgetting the top name. Sierra, sorry. And she can assist you in contacting your supervisor on your behalf and figuring out the issue. So again, not necessarily what you want to do immediately. Try to see if you can solve it on your own, but if you do need assistance, we're always there to help you, specifically Sierra in the case of dealing with the company directly. Once in contact with your supervisor, if it's been a little bit, we do suggest, ask them what is the best method to communicate with them in the future. Set up additional pre-planned check-ins in order to set a defined time to connect. So, again, if it's been an issue, finding a way to make sure you have a pre-planned time to connect would be important, so that way that you're not worried that you won't be able to connect with them, sooner in the future. We suggest, as Kellen was saying, you are going to be setting up and you'll want to be communicating with your manager this week, to set up your first, check-in with them on Monday. And so during that meeting on Monday, it would be important to ask them about their supervisory style, their expectations, what's the ways that people communicate within the organization and how they expect you to communicate with them. If they don't have frequent planned check-ins, make sure that whenever you're talking with them, you have some sort of list of projects or checkpoints before each check-in concludes, so that you have kind of a list of things to do between that time that you talk to them and the next time that you'll be formally connecting. Of course, you'll be hopefully communicating across other platforms, but just if you don't have formal check-ins all the time, make sure that you have a checklist of what to do between those check-ins. Scenario 3, your workplace has meetings at times that are not convenient with your local time zone. You would like to attend, but also don't want to work at 3 a.m. in the morning. What should you do? So specifically for our students on this program, because the internships are taking place in Asia, which has a much different time zone than those of you that are currently in the United States, this could be an issue where maybe they do have some meetings that are time zones that are not really reasonable, for you to attend. So the first thing I would just say is, although it's possible that meetings might be outside the normal 9 to 5, don't feel pressure to attend a meeting that's unrealistic hours. We do expect that you will probably have to, in order to connect with your manager, have to set up some sort of times that may not be at 9 o'clock. Maybe you have to set up a little bit earlier, a little bit later in the day, in order to connect, just because the time difference. But you won't be expected to attend a meeting that is in the middle of the night or the middle of the early morning that's not reasonable to attend. If you can't attend a meeting and your manager is asking you to attend, please be sure to communicate clearly why it would be difficult for you to do so. They may not be aware of what exact time it is, in your home, your home time zone. If they're insisting on you attending all these unrealistic hours, which hopefully they won't, but if that is the case, then you can always reach out to Sierra to be kind of your buffer to help you if they aren't quite understanding. In general, we just suggest, when you're meeting, especially in this first meeting with your manager, to ask if there's any mandatory meetings that you should expect, and decide on, whether those will or won't work out, for you specifically because of time zone. That way you can adjust your work schedule accordingly, if you are attending. So maybe it's a meeting in the evening at 8 o'clock, which means maybe you're going to start your workday a little bit later, or maybe you'll have a break in the middle, something like that. And also identify, if you can't attend a meeting, who you should follow up with afterwards, so you're getting all the information that you might have missed. It's always best to set expectations early about your availability, interest to engage outside of your check-ins with your supervisor. So, make sure you do that in your first check-in, with your supervisor or manager upcoming this week. Scenario 4. So you've been in your internship for a while and you're unsatisfied with the types of projects you're given, or find yourself with not a lot to do. What should you do? So of course, we hope this won't be the case, but let's say this is the case. What would be your next course of action? So first thing, if you want additional work, just be sure to check in with your manager, when your tasks are complete. I think sometimes interns, or some of our students, they'll complete a task and be, all right, I'm done, but won't immediately check in. And so, if the managers know that you're done, it helps them, one, to know how quickly maybe you did something or completed it, and also knows that, you're ready for something new. It's even better if you're approaching the end of a task to let them know that you'll be done pretty soon, so that they can identify maybe a new task prior to you wrapping up, so you already have something ready to go if there wasn't something already on your agenda. If you have a particular skill that you think could be helpful to the organization, make sure to also communicate this to your manager. You might have discussed this in your interviews already, but just to remind them, that way when they're thinking of additional tasks for you, or maybe new tasks just come up, due just to the nature of work, they'll have you in mind. Also, if you're seeing there's a challenge or opportunity, in an organization, feel free to pitch an idea. The worst someone can say is no. It's always, seeing, again, as Kellen was saying, having that initiative is always great for them to see from, you as an intern, to know that they can count on you, to know that you're excited, and there to get things started. So some things just to know is that, you are new to this organization or company. It can take sometimes a little bit of time for an employee, or employer or manager to gain trust in a new employer intern. So, in your initial, meeting with your manager, talk a little bit about your career goals, some of your goals for this actual internship, so they can keep in mind, again, these sort of projects, throughout your time as an intern. You may find that some of the initial projects might be shorter in nature, so they can kind of figure out where your strengths are before they might give you larger, and higher skilled projects towards the midpoint of your internship. Additionally, there may be higher level tasks that, just because you're here for a short time, and they may not be able to have you directly involved with the actual completion of it, but they may be open to having you join a call or to sit in, and to shadow a little bit. And so definitely let them know if you're interested in something, that you would like to sit in and to learn, or something like that. That way that you're still getting that experience of seeing how people might solve a specific problem or issue. And then of course, Sierra is there for support if you're having specific issues, with the projects, and communicating this to your host site supervisor. And then the last thing, you're enjoying your internship, but you find yourself working more than the agreed upon 20 to 30 hours per week. What should you do? So again, there is the internship contract, so they should be aware of the number of hours that you should be completing. They've obviously been vetted by virtual internships, so they should be aware of all the requirements. But sometimes, in the midst of it being a really busy work week or having a lot of projects on board for them, they may forget the number of hours that you're not working there full time. So make sure that you speak to your supervisor and discuss your workload, especially if there's a lot of deadlines approaching, and make sure you can find a balanced solution. If multiple deadlines are approaching a certain week, it may be that you're able to flex your hours, in another week, if that ends up being the best solution for you. And again, you can always speak with Sierra if this becomes a specific issue that you're worried about and they're not taking your feedback. Don't be afraid in general to ask questions. Try to create in general a good work environment at home as well, so that you're also completing your tasks in a reasonable time. If they're giving you a task that should be completed in 20 hours, ask questions, if you're not sure, so it doesn't take you 40 hours to complete something just because you were nervous about asking a question. They're definitely aware that it's a little bit harder to onboard someone virtually than it would be if you were in person and you're getting all those little interactions, like at the water cooler and walking to people's desks and asking those quick questions. So make sure you use your communication tools effectively so that you can get answers and complete your tasks in a timely manner. And so now I'm going to move over to Kellen to talk about just some other general FAQs, and then we'll give you an opportunity to also ask some questions here in a couple of minutes.
Perfect. Thank you, Andrew. So I'm just going to pick one or two because I think we've kind of talked through a lot of these in detail, and I want to give you all time to ask the questions that you really have. But really quickly, let's see, when will I be required to attend meetings with my supervisor, company calls? We've talked about this. We're really kind of giving you autonomy. This is a great chance for you to practice your own career management. A lot of really big companies, Amazon, some big banks and things like that, have already signaled that they're going to start doing a hybrid working schedule and kind of give employees a chance to work maybe 2 or 3 days from home. And so working remotely is a skill that you're going to need in the future of work and kind of as you enter the workforce. And so this is a great chance for you to kind of practice all of that. And so it's really up to you and your host company supervisor to set that kind of schedule, set the meetings, set when you're working, set when you need to be logged on, set when you can kind of do your work on your own time. And so once again, this is just a great chance for you to over communicate and really practice that skill of career management. What if I don't like my company or my supervisor? Think through, what don't you like? Is there something that's going on? Is it a cultural difference? Or is it maybe a work difference? Is there something where you're not working on the projects that you want to work on? Is there a difference in communication style? Is there a lot of cultural barriers that you're having trouble navigating? If you just say that you don't like something, that's kind of difficult to discern what's really going on beneath the surface. So definitely ask yourself those questions, but definitely book a call with Sierra, because I think that's one of those things that's going to be really helpful to talk through. And if it is a cultural difference, then it may just kind of be that you need some more communication with your host company supervisor. If it's the projects that you're working on, and once again, it may be a chance just for you to have a conversation and ask for work that really more appeals to you. So if you do kind of find yourself struggling, try to ask yourself the questions and pinpoint some specifics of what's bothering you. And also just book a call with Sierra so we can kind of talk through all of that. So now that was kind of like a quick overview, but I really do want to leave the most time for you all to ask your questions. So what questions do you all have? Feel free to put it in the chat, unmute yourself, whatever, however best you want to ask.
And I'm going to move forward. I'm going to actually stop the recording now, and then we'll go on to questions. So I'm going to stop it right here.